I wanted to talk about was partially inspired by a conversation that we had and a conversation I had with another one of you. And so it's something I think that we all think about. And it has to do with an expression that we often use when things have gotten complicated or confusing or challenging. And it's a phrase that particularly spiritual people tend to use, which is, well, it's all meant to be, right? It's just meant to be this way. And we will so often make this kind of global statement. And I'm going to just invite you to contemplate on this, maybe even dissect it a little bit. And I'll give you my dissection, and then I'll be interested to hear your comments. So first of all, who the heck am I to know what was meant to be? I think it's often an expression that's said with the intention of great humility. But when you think about it, what ego is there in saying, oh, well, this is all how it was meant to be? Not only that, there are lessons to be learned from this, and I got those lessons. I got it all figured out. It was supposed to be this way. Everything's perfect. It's all come together exactly the way it should have been. And now I'm, what do you call it, Monday night quarterbacking, and now I've got all that stuff that was so confusing all figured out because it was meant to be. And it was meant to teach me this, or it was meant to teach you this, or, that other person who was involved in it was meant, as a lesson for them. And I'll tell them what their lesson is, by the way, in case they haven't figured it out. I may be exaggerating a little bit, but maybe I'm not. And so I'm just going to invite you to just kind of take this a little bit deeper. I mean, really, do we know what was meant to be? And actually, does the universe know or predetermine what is meant to be? As I was saying to Noelle, at a certain level, of course, at the non-dual level of being in complete unity, of being in that place of complete limitless love, everything that happens, it just happens because, and in a certain way, it's not that it was meant to happen. It's kind of irrelevant because all we're trying to do is get back to, return to that place of limitless love. That's what enlightenment is. We can call it the Brahman, we can call it God, whatever you want to call it. But once we're there, everything else that has transpired, becomes the unreal. It's samsara. It's not samskara. Samskaras are our karmic patterns. Samsara is the churning wheel of life. It's Maya. Well, once we're out of samsara, what was supposed to be or whatever becomes in a certain way irrelevant. The one thing that we know is meant to be is that each one of us eventually will find our way back home. Each one of us eventually will become completely enlightened. Each one of us eventually will dissolve into the universal, into the Brahman, into limitless love. Now, exactly when that eventuality will happen is only relevant to our dualistic mind that occupies space and time. But when we are in the unity, that no longer matters. So we can be frustrated, fed up, anxious, just so striving so hard to attain awakening, like it just has to happen right now. But the truth is, when it happens, even that striving doesn't matter anymore. And it inevitably will happen because we are that. Now, until we really realize this or have more glimpses of it, it sounds like a lot of words. And so we still operate striving, trying to find it. And we still operate trying to figure out the signposts as we go, and what was meant to happen and what wasn't meant to happen, and what the lessons were, and all of that. See, the thing is, it's like, if it's all preset, like it was all meant to happen, what's the point, right? This is the question of, determinism versus free will. To me, karma takes care of that question beautifully. Because, you see, we actually come into this world with predetermined habit patterns. Those are the samskaras from previous lives. So we come into this world with karmas that we have to work out. Fortunately, we don't have memories of those past lives, but we have the habit patterns, our personalities, our inclinations, our likes, our dislikes, etc. And we also, because of those habit patterns, we're likely to create new habit patterns. We're likely to create new karmas, new causes and effects. And on the spiritual path, one of our huge tasks is to burn through those karmas, to neutralize those karmas. Which means, of course, that every karma we create, we're creating our own destiny. But every karma that we neutralize through spiritual practice, through what in the Bhagavad Gita is called spiritual discrimination or discernment, making a choice for awareness rather than a choice for desire, simple pleasure, need, passion. Every time we do that, we're clearing karmas. We're changing that which was meant to be. Now, if we think we can figure that out for ourselves, how many karmas we have and what they are, and exactly what we need to do to clear them all, which, good luck if you can figure that out for yourself. Well, all our karmas are interacting with all the other people that we're coming into contact with. And a huge web of what was meant to be is being created in every single moment. So in every moment, all the karmas of me and of you and of all the beings in the world are interacting to determine what's going to happen in the next moment, what's meant to be. But what's meant to be is based on what just happened. But if it doesn't quite happen that way, or if in the next moment we act, think, be, exist outside of our karma, and we have that choice, we're changing destiny. And then we're changing the destiny of the entire universe because everything interacts. Makes us really powerful, huh? Maybe not. The thing is that to step outside of our karmas, it's actually fairly simple. All we need to do is stop identifying with everything that we're doing, thinking, and being. So, what does that mean? It means that in every moment, it doesn't mean we don't act. It doesn't mean that we don't have thoughts. It doesn't mean that we don't do things, say things, but we're not attached to it. We're not worried about what the next implication will be. We're not worried about how somebody's going to see us, or did I say that correctly? We just simply move from one action to another action to another action, and we're not leaving a karmic residual trail of psychological and physical stuff behind us. It's those trails of psychological gunk that keep us bound in our karma. But when we can simply be in the true beingness of our souls, which are pure, which can get identified as the me who's doing all these things, and the me that's seeking results, and the me that wants this and wants that. But when we can just be in the purity of our soul, the thought stream ceases, the commentator gets quiet, and we just simply do what is called to do next, or what we feel prompted to do next. We don't stop acting, we don't stop being, we don't stop taking care of ourselves, we don't stop loving. We do all that with vigor and with enthusiasm. But we don't bring this whole history of trauma and concern and worry forward with us. Whew, that's a tall order. Yeah, we might need to do some psychological investigation along the way in order to release all that psychological stuff. It's a good idea not to do what we call the spiritual bypass. Trying to just be a spiritual being. We already are a spiritual being, but most of us are pretty shrouded in all our psychological stuff. The thing is, when we're not so identified with our experiences, then we're not creating more and more desires. Simple things like, I really want to, we'll just, let's say you're on the call now and you're thinking of a point that you really want to make, and I really want to make my point, and I really want people to understand it, and I really want to just set it down, and I'm sure that my insight is brilliant and whatever. Please don't let me intimidate anybody, right? We want something, we get attached to it, we get attached to the results of it, we get attached to the I'm doing this, right? The doership. And we get attached to the very process itself. Because I want to do this, I want to do it well, and then if I don't feel like I did it well, then I may try to retract it, I might take it back, and and I try to rationalize it, and I try to figure, and then I tell myself if I feel like a failure, well, it was meant to happen, and we're just full of all kinds of rationalizations, basically. So, well, what does this mean then? It's all meant to happen. And I do think, yes, sometimes we use this expression. It's just we use another expression a lot. It's all good, right? It was all meant to be. Climate change was meant to be. Coronavirus was meant to be. So that we could learn this and that, and so that we can come together as humanity, and so we can learn better hygiene. I don't know. Really? Was this part of the loving divine's plan? Or did it just come to pass as a result of the collective karma of billions of humans on Earth and billions of billionth square of microbes and etc. And you know, the just how it all interacted. At some level, of course, everything's divine. Yes, it's a divine plan. If the divine plans, see, this is the thing. If the divine is love, pure love, limitless love, there is only, it's outside of time. There is only one moment. When we are in perfect union, we're not planning. So why on Earth, or should I say, why in the cosmos would the divine, immutable, unchangeable, eternal nowness have a plan? You see, a plan to me implies a duality. There's someone that thinks of something that needs to be applied and acted out. Okay, so we talk about, you know, we can't really understand this conceptually. You know, so we can talk about the levels of the divine, and I talk about there's limitless love. And then the energy of that limitless love is the love force. In Kashmir Shaivism, there's Shiva, the absolute. And Shiva, to know itself, himself, to know itself, because it is just pure knowingness, pure intelligence, pure knowledge, pure love. In order to know itself, which is the whole of everything, right? Shakti, the love force energy, arises and everything is manifested. But eventually it all dissolves back. And then what we know is there's never been anything that's other than Shiva. There is nothing other than limitless love. And these notions of planning and organizing, which, by the way, in my relative world state, I'm really partial to planning and organization, okay? But they're relative notions. And actually, they're thoughts of a relative being. The being itself, with a capital B, that's inside of or way beyond this little being with a small b, doesn't rationalize, doesn't plan, just is. So trying to get our head around these things, you know, often doesn't work, because the idea is, or what I'm hoping, is that some of this is helping you to get beyond the head, into the heart, into the limitless love that is at the core of your very own being. The pure beingness that doesn't plan, that doesn't organize, it just is. Now, as long as that soul self, and a portion, so to speak, of the universal limitless love, as long as that soul self is embodied, there has to be this part of us that does think and plan. But what we want is for that part of us to be wise enough to kind of catch ourselves with some of our catchphrases, so to speak. It's all meant to be. It's all good. As above, so below. You know, these nice spiritual catchphrases. They all have truth at the absolute level. But most of the time when we're speaking them, we're using them to rationalize something at the relative level. I'm not saying don't ever use these expressions, of course not. But I'm just saying ponder them. Actually, don't ponder them, because that means the brain. Sit with them. Rest with them. And see if they aren't actually much more surface thoughts and rationalizations than your own deeper experience. You just ask yourself, really, who am I to know what was meant to be? And when I am truly myself, does it matter what was meant to be? Even that expression, it was meant to be. Like, yes, yesterday, what happened today, the karma of yesterday is what made today happen. But at every moment along the way, there's freedom. Freedom from the process, freedom from the identification, freedom from the results. By simply tuning in to your deeper soul self, that's completely free of all this. See, that's the bliss of it. That's the beauty. At the deepest, truest level, we're free of it all. Doesn't mean that we won't get out there and try to stop climate change or try to stop keeping voting rights from being fair. But at the deepest level, we actually want to free ourselves from the planning and the karma. We just want to be. And when we do that, when we truly step in to our being as the soul self, capital S, karmas dissolve. It's actually that simple. And sometimes we have to do some things in the world to work out some of them, but they will. They do. In this very moment, for each one of us, karma is dissolving. This is actually one of our Kali Ki Reiki principles. In this very moment, no anger. In this very moment, no worry. In this very moment, may karma dissolve. In this very moment, compassion for self and others. So go ahead and just take time to sit in this moment now, in quiet and in freedom from whatever was meant to be.